Hello and welcome to Grade 7 English tutorial class. I'm Teacher Jem. Our topic for today is the past perfect tense. Our objective is to learn how to use the past perfect tense correctly in varied contexts. Let's have a review. In our previous lesson, we have discussed about forming the simple past and the past participle form of verbs. In here, we have learned that there are two kinds of verbs, regular verbs and irregular verbs. Regular verbs form their past and past participle form by adding the, ed, or by changing y to I and add ed. Just like in the following examples. To form the simple past and the past participle form of walk, you have to add ed. While to form the simple past and the past participle of dance, all you have to do is to add d since it already ends in e. Study and cry both end in y, so to form their simple past and past participle form, you have to change their last letter y to I and add ed. Irregular verbs form their past tense in different ways. At times, there is no change in spelling. So put is also put in the simple past and put in the past participle form. There are verbs which have the same spelling in the simple past and past participle form. So, for example, sit is sat in the simple past and is also sat in the past participle form. There are verbs, though, that have different spelling all throughout the simple past and the past participle form. Drink will be drank in the simple past and drunk in the past participle form. You can use the dictionary to look into the past and past participle form of a verb. If you looked at the word swim in the dictionary, you will notice the words under it. Swim in the simple past will be swam, while in the past participle is swum. Now let us focus in the past perfect tense. What is the past perfect tense? The past perfect tense expresses the idea that an action happened before another action in the past. Notice that there are two kinds of action that we are talking about. The first action occurred before the other action, but both of them are in the past. Notice this illustration. Two actions occurred in the past. The first one occurred at 9 a.m., while the next one occurred at 9:15. Remember that the first action is the one in the past perfect tense, and the second action is the one in the simple past. Statement, or to state this illustration in a sentence, you say, when he arrived to the train station, the train had left. So the first action was when the train left, and the second action was when he arrived. So the train had left when he arrived. Now, the next sentence is just the same, but this time we have different verbs. The first action occurred at 8 o'clock, while the second action occurred at 8:15. So let's read the sentence. The meeting had already started when I arrived. So, the meeting started first, and then he arrived. Let's continue. So for us to perfectly understand the concept of a past perfect tense, we need to understand the sequence of events. The first action occurred first, and then another action happened. And the first action that occurred first is the one in the past perfect tense. Now let's learn how to form sentences in the past perfect tense. Okay. In forming the past perfect tense, you start with the subject And your subjects can be nominative pronouns or subject pronouns such as I, you, she, or we. But this can also be nouns. Then you make use of the auxiliary verb had. And then the main verb, which is always in the past participle form. In order for you to negate or use or write a sentence in the negative form, all you have to do is to add not after the auxiliary verb. Okay. Look into the examples. Now, the keywords for past perfect tense would be the words before or conjunctions before, when, and after. Notice that in before, you have to write the past perfect tense first, and then after the word before, you have to write the past simple or the second action, which is the same with the conjunction when. While in the conjunction after, the simple past tense form or the past simple form is stated first, and then after the conjunction would be the past perfect tense. Now, let's have the following illustration, and let's try to form sentences using this illustration. The first action was write a letter, while the next action would be go home. But remember, these verbs are already or are still in the base form. You have to change them in the appropriate forms depending upon the tense that you are referring to. Okay, let's try to form sentences using that example. So your subject is Julio. And in the timeline, if this refers to now, the first action was when Julio had written a letter. The next action is when he went home. The first action, remember, is in the past perfect tense, while the second action will be in the simple past. Now let's try constructing a sentence using this illustration. All you have to do is to remember the structure. Let's use the word or the conjunction before. So in forming the past perfect tense, as we've discussed, you write the subject plus the auxiliary verb had plus the past participle form of the verb. In this case, your verb is right. Your subject is Julio. So Julio had, what is the past participle form of right? That will be written. Okay, a letter. Then you make use of the conjunction before, and then we have the same subject for the next phrase, he. Let's use the simple past form of go, went home. So again, Julio had written a letter before he went home. This one is the sentence in the past perfect tense, while this one is in the simple past or past simple. Now, you can also write this the other way around. We can start with the conjunction before. So you can say, before Julio went home, he had written a letter. There. So we still have the conjunction before at the first part of the sentence, but we still have to follow the second action, which is in the simple past went. And then don't forget to use a comma right after the clause. Okay, so before Julio went home, he had written a letter. Okay, let's have another example. So Julio had written a letter before he went home, or you can say before Julio went home, he had written a letter. Let's have another example. This time, we have two subjects. The first subject is the wife, and the verb is cook, while the second subject is Julio, and the verb is come. Now remember, the first action is the one in the past perfect tense. Okay, let's try to illustrate that. So if you try to analyze that, the first action would be cook, and the one who cooked was the wife, and the other verb is come, and the one who came was Julio. Since this is the first action, again, this is the one in the past perfect tense. And this one is the one in the simple past. Let's try to use the conjunction when. Okay, so remember, again, in forming the past perfect tense, you will have to use the subject, the auxiliary verb had, and the past participle form of the verb. So subject would be Julio's wife had cooked dinner when he, that will be Julio, came home. Notice, we made use of had and cook for the first action and the simple past form for the next action. Again, we can turn this the other way around. We could start with the conjunction when Julio came home, his wife had cooked dinner. So again, we started off with the conjunction when and then the simple past form. Don't forget to make use of the comma and then the second clause, which is in the past perfect form, had cooked dinner. So Julio's wife had cooked dinner when he came home. When Julio came home, his wife had already cooked dinner. You can also use the word already to emphasize that the first action was already accomplished or completed before the second action. Let's have the last example. Now, our subject would be the children, and our first verb would be eat, and our next action would be play. Let's try to form the sentence. This time, we shall be using the conjunction after. Okay, so again, the first action was eat breakfast, and then the next action would be play outside. Okay, the subject, children. Okay, again, this is the one in past perfect tense. This one is in the simple past. Okay. Now, remember that when you make use of the conjunction after, it is always followed by the past perfect tense. So most of the time, we start with the simple past first. Okay. So we start with the simple past first, and then we use the conjunction after and then the past perfect tense, which makes use of subject plus had plus again the past participle form of the verb. So let's start with the simple past. The children played outside after they, subject, had eaten breakfast. There. So the children played outside, that is in the simple past. After, then they had eaten, which is in the past perfect tense. You can also do this the other way around. So you can say, after they had eaten, or after the children, let's start with the children. After the children had eaten dinner, they played outside. Okay. Outside. Okay. So there. So you can start with after and then the past perfect tense form. Don't forget to use the comma if you start with the conjunction and then the simple past tense form, which is played. Now let's look at the sentences again. The children played outside after they had eaten breakfast. Or after the children had eaten breakfast, they played outside. Now I want you to get a piece of paper, a clean piece of paper, and a pen and try to construct a sentence on your own. Follow this illustration. Your subject is I. The first action is study. The second action is play. Make use of the conjunction before. You can pause this video and try to write your own sentence and press play again after you have written your answer. The correct answer is I had studied my lessons before I played outside. Before I played outside, I had studied my lessons. Let's have another one. This time, we have two subjects, Mark's family and he. The first action is eat. The second action is come. Make use of the conjunction when. The correct answer is Mark's family had eaten dinner when he came home, or when Mark came home, his family had eaten dinner. Our last sentence. Your subject is children, and the first action is take vitamins. Second action is go to sleep. Try using the conjunction after. The answers are the children went to sleep after they had taken their vitamins, or after the children had taken their vitamins, they went to sleep. Thank you very much. I hope you've learned a lot.